If seeing someone else succeed creates a physical sense of anxiety, if their achievements leave you questioning your own value, if you find yourself abandoning your current trajectory to mirror theirs, you are likely experiencing a state of high-alert comparison. This mechanism hijacks your cognitive focus, diverting energy away from personal growth to manage a perceived social imbalance. Throughout this series, we looked at the strategies our nervous systems use to navigate the world. We reclassified burnout as a biological shutdown rather than laziness. We saw overstimulation as a sensory overload, not a personal weakness. We identified avoidance as a protection mechanism, not a lack of discipline. We unmasked procrastination as a failure of emotional regulation and perfectionism as a shield against criticism. We recognized that people-pleasing often functions as a survival-based fawning response. We clarified that emotional numbness can be a form of protective dissociation, while overthinking and self-criticism are often attempts to predict and prevent future mistakes. Now we must address comparison. It often passes for drive or staying competitive, but it operates on a different neurological logic than genuine goal-seeking. Aspiration originates from an internal compass. Comparison functions as a surveillance system, measuring self-worth against external references. Aspiration asks, "Where do I want to go?" While comparison asks, "Am I keeping up?" One is a choice of direction, the other a reaction to your environment. Biologically, this monitoring is a survival mechanism. For much of human history, social standing determined access to resources and protection. When you compare yourself to a peer, your nervous system is assessing your safety within the group hierarchy. When you treat a high-alert safety check like a long-term motivation strategy, you end up in a state of chronic exhaustion. To stop the cycle, we have to recognize the 6 specific ways this threat response manifests. Sign 1. You find yourself in a state of constant surveillance. This is the compulsive need to monitor the progress of others, the frequent checks, and the relentless scrolling. This behavior rarely stems from a desire for inspiration. It is a search for data to determine exactly where you sit in the social hierarchy. Constant monitoring puts the brain in a state of hypervigilance. Each new piece of information about a peer's success acts as a stressor, which correlates with higher baseline anxiety and a persistent drop in mood. Because this information gathering is handled by the amygdala and the limbic system, it bypasses logic. Your brain isn't analyzing a career move, it is evaluating whether you are becoming obsolete or vulnerable within your tribe. Sign 2. A win for someone else registers internally as a loss for you. Whenever a peer hits a major milestone, the immediate internal reaction is a feeling of falling behind, accompanied by the belief that you may never catch up. This reaction occurs because the brain often processes social status and physical safety in the same regions. In an evolutionary context, a drop in relative status meant a literal decrease in one's chances of survival. This creates an underlying assumption that your personal value is tied to your rank. If you aren't matching their milestones, the system signals that your very worth is at risk. When you link self-worth to an external, uncontrollable ranking, you turn the world into a minefield of threats. Every success story you hear becomes an indictment of your own progress. Sign 3. You've begun drifting towards someone else's path. You might notice that your goals have shifted to mirror a trajectory you recently observed in someone else. This is reactive imitation. It is a defensive maneuver designed to close the perceived gap between you and a successful peer. You find yourself adopting their timelines and their definitions of achievement, even if those milestones don't actually align with your original interests. However, sustained effort requires deep internal buy-in. It is functionally impossible to maintain long-term commitment to a path that was chosen as a reaction rather than a preference. Sign 4. It feels like ambition, but it is driven by a different fuel source. This is particularly deceptive for high performers because the outward behavior looks like hard work. You are planning, building, and executing with a high level of urgency. On the surface, this appears to be a productive drive, but the energy is fueled by the fear of being left behind. You are working to alleviate the discomfort of a threat response rather than pursuing a meaningful objective. While genuine ambition is an expansive pull toward an interest, comparison is a restrictive push away from a fear. Because fear is a high-cost biological state, running your entire career or life on this reaction will eventually lead to a total systemic shutdown, regardless of how much you achieve. Sign 5. Your own achievements fail to provide satisfaction. You complete a major project or reach a goal, but the sense of accomplishment never arrives. Instead, your attention immediately pivots back to the peer group. You find yourself asking if your success is still enough compared to what they are doing right now. This happens because the threat response in your nervous system can override the brain's dopamine-based reward signals. The alarm bell of comparison drowns out the satisfaction of the win. When success doesn't land, your motivation begins to dry up. You are putting in the work, but you never receive the neurological payout that keeps you going. Sign 6. The finish line is constantly shifting sideways. Reaching a goal doesn't result in an arrival. It triggers a refocusing on wherever the peer group has moved to next. You aren't moving forward on your own path. You are chasing a target that moves every time someone else takes a step. This creates an endless, exhausting loop of pursuit. The mechanism isn't designed to help you reach a destination. It is designed to maintain a relative position in a crowd that is always in motion. If achievement has stopped feeling like enough, it isn't because you lack drive. It's because you've been using a survival instinct to try and build a life, and that instinct is never satisfied. Recalibrating this response isn't about lowering your standards. It is about returning your focus to your own internal compass. Step 1. Question the origin of your current goals. Pause and ask, is this something I actually value, or did I start wanting it because I saw someone else achieve it? Step 2. Reduce the surveillance input. By limiting the time spent monitoring others, you allow the social threat signals in your brain to quiet down, making it possible to hear your own interests again. Step 3. Switch to self-referenced metrics. Compare your current capabilities to where you were 6 months ago. When progress is measured against your own past, the brain can finally register the achievement, which builds the sustainable momentum needed for long-term growth. Step 4. Treat others' success as a resource rather than a threat. Shift the focus from "they are ahead" to "they have demonstrated a method I can study." This reframing trains your nervous system to decouple a peer's progress from your own sense of safety. Throughout this series, we have looked at the strategies our minds use to survive. We redefined burnout as a shutdown, overstimulation as an overload, and avoidance as a defense. Procrastination as an emotional struggle, and perfectionism as a shield. People-pleasing as a safety response, emotional numbness as a barrier, overthinking as a prediction tool, and self-criticism as self-correction. Today, we see comparison for what it actually is at its core, a social threat response that has entirely hijacked your cognitive focus. Your mind isn't trying to sabotage you. It is trying to keep you safe in a social world the only way it knows how. But you cannot build a life of personal meaning while your nervous system is preoccupied with running someone else's race. When you feel the urge to measure yourself against another, ask, am I learning for myself or am I reacting to a threat? That question shifts the power back to your internal compass. If this series is helping you find language for your internal experiences, subscribe. This is Misdiagnosed Traits, for those ready to see their nervous system strategies for what they really are. Next episode, why avoiding difficult conversations is often fear masking as a survival strategy. We'll see you then.